Disappointed in the outcome, but we knew we were up against a tall task. I think I was very clear about that coming in. I haven't watched them on film. I think they're even better than what their ranking shows right now. Coming off a loss, obviously, right before the rankings come out, don't necessarily help in that regard. I did think, for the most part, our guys competed pretty hard. You know, we got some young guys that are being put in positions to do things that maybe they're not quite ready to do consistently enough. But you know, they fought, you know, and I think outside of probably a 6 minute or so, I don't know the exact time frame, stretch in the first half, is where it got away from us. And it's hard to come back against a team that doesn't turn over a lot. We're probably not going to miss very many free throws and have multiple ball handlers out there. So hats off to them. Certainly disappointed in the outcome. Proud of the effort. We just got to get better.
Javon said that he feels you guys are getting better. How do you stay positive at a time like this where the result might not be there, but the team at least feels like that they're taking the right steps?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty mature on his part to be able to see that. You know, he's obviously played a lot of college basketball. I would imagine not the first time he's been in a spot where they weren't undefeated at this time of the year. Understands that there's still a long road to go during the year, and that there were some good things that we did. One of the things we talked about going into the game is from a volume standpoint and shooting threes. We couldn't come in at halftime and have them have 20 threes attempted and us have 4. We kept it relatively close. They didn't totally get away from us at the 3-point line. Now we made a few of ours later. We didn't turn the ball over a great deal and get beat in transition because that's really where they hurt you. Again, I don't like talking too specifically about the game, but I feel like that 6 minute or so segment of the first half that was the difference. And against a good team, it's really all it takes, you know, especially when then they can keep you off balance, right? So I thought early, you know, our guys were locked in on the game plan. Shireman, nothing easy for Kalkbrenner, be physical with Alexander, and then Ashworth kind of holds the line for him and really kind of gets him going. And now you put a little bit more attention on him, and you go under one screen on Shireman, he makes you pay. You don't get a defensive rebound in the second half where you got to 12 and maybe have a little momentum. And what does it lead to? A step in 3 for Ashworth at the wrong time. So they got a really good team. You know, they put pressure on you at every spot. Kalkbrenner even was able to make a 3, which then makes you try to think, how much can you help? But I did think the one thing we did fall into is we took a lot of non-rim 2-point shots. So kind of that mid-range shot that they want you to take. It's fairly low percentage if you kind of just study the game, but it's the shot that's pretty open because they keep the big at the rim almost exclusively. So you get in there and you're open, but it's not really the shot you want. It's hard to turn down, but we talked about trying to turn that down more, or you got to make them, you know, and we didn't make enough of them to really make them adjust.
Is that 17-0 run that they had, is that where you think things went wrong for you guys offensively, was the mid-range?
Yeah, a couple shots didn't go. We took a couple mid-ranges, and they made a couple threes. And again, they're not going on a 4-minute stretch without scoring. You know, so you got to keep up offensively, and we didn't keep up offensively enough in the first half.
I noticed it early. I didn't notice it late, but I think you guys were in drop coverage with Ashworth. He came off a couple of screens and hit some shots. Was that an adjustment? How did you guys kind of plan on going into that?
So we wanted to. The plan was to go over everything, to never go under. By going under, I mean the guy guarding the ball go under the screen and obviously give them an opportunity to shoot the 3 behind it. So we wanted to try to force them in, and really the only player that really wants to play that aggressively downhill is Trey. And obviously he got to his shot and had a great game. Congratulations to him. But that was part of the game plan. We wanted to stay away from giving up lob dunks to Kalkbrenner, which we did for the most part until the very end there. But again, I thought the offensive rebounding, the timely shots, right? We lost Ashworth on the baseline runner. We shouldn't do that in the first half. That was part of that run. We lost Shireman in front of our bench on a 1 pass. Like those plays can't happen and win a game like this because you have to make them work to score. They're gonna score some hard ones. You can't let them also score easy ones.
What did y'all do differently, like adjustments made in the second half defensively to kind of slow them down and really get them out of, they didn't have a big run like that in the second half like they did in the first?
I mean, I don't know if we necessarily adjusted schematically much. We still talked about the same things. You know, we didn't have the breakdowns as much. Then we had two big ones. I think Garrison has his hand on the rebound there, and you know it's physical. Whether he got fouled or not, it's consequential. But you don't come up with that ball, and those guys got four dudes standing out there, and you're kind of stuck because you're scrambling. It's like playing transition defense in the half court, and those almost always go in. And then one Shireman's coming off in the corner, and I think Q's guarding him, and he gets to the screen, and he does go under. You know, and that with a team like this is the key: is having enough discipline to do it every single time. And it's hard because the game fatigues you. Your mind goes. You think you missed the first step, and so you can make up for it going the other way, and you can't. So I think just the attention to detail was a little bit greater. I think our offense helped us a little bit more, which kept us from being as discouraged defensively, but we couldn't make up the margin quite. You know, we were winning the 4-minute segments, but you started down 17 and you're down 15, then you're down 12, and it's still hard. It's the time's running out on you, so to speak.
With Garrison, he picked up his fourth foul, goes to the bench, very obviously frustrated. He's frustrated. What do you tell him in that moment? And also with such a young team, how do you kind of keep that from, centering that frustration, centering that energy to, going positive going forward?
Yeah, quite honestly, that's the balance here. What the job with this group is just understanding that Garrison's never really been in that situation enough to know Trey Alexander's got the ball picked up at the 30-foot mark. You're 6'11", he's 6'5". Just put your hands up. You don't need to try to steal the ball from him. And so it's a hard thing to go through, but you got to go through it. He'll be better the next time, just like he's better today than he was 3 weeks ago. I mean, he's much more confident. He's moving better. He has a better understanding of where he can be effective. We're seeing the kid grow up, probably at the pace we need him to. It's just that not at the pace that's good enough to sustain 30 minutes of physical play, and so having a balance for him and Marsh right now is good for him.
7 games in, do you feel like your team has kind of an identity of what y'all are? Obviously there's still a month until conference play, but do you feel like you're getting a sense of what this team is and what they can be?
Yeah, I think it's evolving. And again, this is in no way an excuse, but when you start without Small and Keller and get Keller back and you lose Thompson and you get Thompson, you're still dealing with some of the lack of continuity with guys, and basketball, as much as anything, it's a rhythm game. And so Javon needs to be out there with Bryce a couple games to figure out, all right, where does Bryce like to catch the ball when he comes off a screen? Bryce needs to do the same thing. What does Javon like to drive in there, and how do I get myself open so that he can find me? And so they played a half together against St. Bonaventure, and Bryce was in foul trouble today, so it'll happen. But I do think that there's some small moments that we can say this is better, but it has to ramp up over the next couple weeks before we start Big 12 play.
I think 4 players for Creighton, 16 or more points. I guess just what could you attribute to that many guys being able to put up that many volume of points, and at times it maybe feel like it was kind of hard to keep up with their offense? Yeah.
I mean, again, it's what is possible coming in, which is why you also can't give up the transition ones because, and that's without really Miller and Trout, who are also prolific three-point shooters, really having any kind of real impact on the game. You look up and you say, man, how the heck is Trout plus 22? Well, he just happened to be in the game on both of the runs they made, So he didn't do a whole lot. But when you come in, because, if you look at it, Mason Miller's, he didn't do much either, and he's -9. It doesn't make any sense, right? But he was in there when we started the game. We played well. Trout comes in, they make the run, and the stat sheet tells you otherwise, but it's just a way that they can space the floor. And then, Cockburn is able to score enough inside where you got to really make a decision. Are you going to live with him playing one-on-one and putting your bigs in foul trouble? Are you going to help? We decided not to help, so he scored pretty much anytime he caught it. We did make him take some tough ones. He missed some. But then you got to account for all of those guys at the 3-point line.
Mike, how
important of a game is this, just in terms of a measuring stick to know how you do stack up against a top 15 team?
Yeah, and again, I told the guys in the locker room, and I try to be really brief in there, because emotions are always pretty high right after the game, and I don't want to speak about something that I haven't watched, right? So I try to do that in here as well. Give myself the benefit of going to watch the film, maybe getting a couple hours of sleep and gathering my thoughts about what actually happened. Because sometimes you don't play as well as you think because you won the game. And sometimes you don't play as poorly as you may feel, but you lost the game, and that overrides everything at the moment. But I would say, for us, what we got to do is we got to understand that, like we talked about the other day, this is a Big 12 game. The intensity, the physicality, the ability for the other team to have multiple players out there who can hurt you. You can't get down 18. You're asking for agony at that point, and again, you can chip away only so much in 20 minutes. So you got to be able to you got to find a way to get that 6-minute stretch out of the game at the end of the day. That's what it boils down to. Maybe burn a second time out. Gotta start with myself. Maybe substitute. Maybe go to a different defense. We try to mix it up a little bit to keep more balance. But those are all areas that we'll look at over the next few days before we play our next game.
Hard to rebound whenever teams aren't missing shots, but what have you thought about your rebounding overall this season?
Not great. I think we're getting better there also, though. I thought Daly was as good as he's been. And I'm talking about, I've seen this kid play a lot of basketball. I'm talking about as I've ever seen him play. And it wasn't because he was taking a whole lot of shots, and it was really because he respected the way the game was supposed to play. He cut when he was supposed to cut. He shot when he was open. He rebounded the ball with some force. And so he needs to continue to be a good rebounder for us. Not that he's going to get 11 every game, but he needs to be a 7-8 rebound guy. Garrison needs to be a guy who gets 8 to 10 rebounds a game for us. Because if you're going to be out there, then you got to produce. That's a part of the deal. So we're getting better. We're still not a dynamite, overwhelmingly physical team. But I do think that's an area that we've improved from game one.
Any updates on Isaiah?
Yeah, I think he's going to be back in practice Saturday. We'll be off tomorrow by rule, once a week. So I think he'll be back in practice Saturday, and we'll see from there.
What have you been told about John Michael's injury?
I think it was more a stinger and kind of a shocker than anything. I don't know why this little thing in here, people call it a funny bone?
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever laughed when they got hit on it? Yeah, I don't think so.
Everybody else does when you mention that.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I think he just got hit on it, and so you kind of get that numbing feeling, and he didn't know because it was a screening action. So he was more scared than anything. I think he's fine. Obviously, he was down about the loss, but I think physically he's going to be okay.
All right, guys, thank you.